Matheus Cunha, capable of the great.
It's a great finish from Matheus Cunha.
And sometimes capable of the controversial. For some United fans, these incidents raise serious flags about the Brazilian's character. After all, the last thing United needs right now is another headache, another player who can't handle the pressure, another ego that puts himself above the team. But I want to ask an important question. What if Cunha's edge isn't a liability at all? What if it's exactly the sort of thing that Manchester United have been missing? Now to begin, let's address the elephant in the room. In December 2024, Cunha's altercation with an Ipswich security staff member went viral. Elbowing him in the back of the head, snatching his glasses off his face, the incident drew widespread condemnation. Pundits and fans questioned his temperament and he received a 2-game ban and an 80 grand fine. Then there was a red card against Bournemouth. The official reported that he punched, headbutted and kicked Milos Kerkez. Add to this social media post that many Wolves fans interpreted as disrespectful to their club and a perceived lack of gratitude towards the club that gave him his start in the Premier League. And it's kind of easy to see why some are concerned.
His attitude does stink. He's not a very hard worker. He doesn't like running for the ball.
The mainstream narrative paints him as a problem player with an attitude issue, a liability, hothead, a risk. But what if these aren't red flags at all? What if, as I said, these are exactly what United need? Now, for years, United have had a soft underbelly, too accepting of mediocrity, too willing to shrink in big moments, or too weak to stop them shrinking even if they wanted to. Players who seem content with just wearing the shirt and who treat defeats as learning experiences rather than failures. Now, the most successful United teams had players with an edge, players who wouldn't accept defeat, and players who would fight, sometimes literally, for the badge. They weren't always the most likeable characters, but they were winners. They understood what it meant to represent the club.
I used to play with some unbelievable players, some of the very best in the world at their time, and they had a right spike to them. And think about Wayne Rooney, Carlos Tevez, Eric Cantona, think about Mark Hughes, how tough and sometimes spirited they were in games. And sometimes they did the unpredictable, sometimes they lost their discipline.
Not just talented footballers, but personalities. Characters who embrace the spotlight and the pressure that comes with it. Like Eric Cantona before him, Cunha's perceived attitude issues could be the exact fire that United's been missing. People often forget that Cantona's temperament was once seen as his fatal flaw. Too volatile, too unpredictable, until Sir Alex Ferguson pointed it in the right direction. Or Wayne Rooney, whose aggressive edge made him both feared and respected. That same fire that occasionally boiled over into controversy was the same that drove him to become United's all-time leading goal scorer. Now, I don't really need to speak to you about who Roy Keane was. The line between villain and hero is often thinner than we think. If you watch Cunha's body language at Wolves, sometimes you see the frustration when a teammate misses a run, the visible anguish when chances aren't taken. It doesn't really strike me as a player with an attitude problem, more one with ambition that he maybe thinks now exceeds his surroundings. We've spent years signing players who can't handle the weight of the United shirt. Perhaps it's time for signings who are desperate to play under that pressure, rather than being afraid of it. Opposition fans used to hate us because they feared us. Now they mock and pity us. United were never loved. We were hated, but respected. That respect came from fear and through just sheer anger at the success of the football club. It came from knowing that if you stepped onto the pitch against United, you weren't just facing players, you were facing fighters.
Any concerns at all about Cunha the character, if not Cunha the player?
No, if I was playing against him, I wouldn't like a player with a bit of spirit and a bit of fight.
And that's what Neville sees in Cunha, a player who wouldn't back down, a player who might cross the line occasionally, but would never cower away. How many times in recent years have we watched United get physically dominated, outfought, and by Cunha himself? I'd argue we don't really need more nice level-headed guys. We actually need players who embrace the pressure of being hated. We need to embrace being hated as a club again and encourage it. We need players who thrive on proving doubters wrong. United's identity was never about being liked. Fuck that. It was about boiling so much piss that fans were angry at our success and they couldn't really do anything about it. It's about time United embraced that again, that side of the club. And Cunha strikes me as a perfect example of that.
Obviously at the time that they get sent off, they know that they've let the team down, but what they give you in return is something special, and I love a player with a character.
Of course, there's going to be a trade-off. There's going to be moments when Cunha, or other players like Cunha, cross the line, when passion boils over. But what he would give in return is a genuine edge, in a team full of blunt players. And personalities like that, I think, should be encouraged at United, not vilified.
And the people start to ask you to change shirts, and sometimes it's like it's big players, and they ask you, and you feel like, no, please, this is not the way. The way is me ask you.
Now, despite that edge on the pitch, there is a humility to Cunha. There's a player who wants to improve and play at the highest level, but he doesn't view himself as being above others. That same fire that leads to controversy also fuels a desire to improve.
It's one of the presents, all the equipments. I really love to be part of this kind of things, This is kind of things than when you put the shirt, you thinking about to play 5-1.
Yeah.
You know, when you win, make them happy, and then of course,
Makes it mean a bit
yeah, exactly. That means a bit more. Exactly, that's the point.
Behind that competitor is a man who understands what it means to represent the clubs that he plays for, to be part of something bigger than himself. Now, hot-headed moments grab headlines, but those quieter instances show a player who does grasp the collective responsibility of being a footballer, whoever he plays for. Cantona was once known primarily for his temper. In France, he was labelled unmanageable. But what happened when he came to Old Trafford? He became the catalyst that launched a dynasty. The missing piece that transformed a talented squad into serial winners. There isn't any United fan who would ever expect that sort of impact from Cunha or a player like him. But it's just more the greatest example of a player whose reputation preceded him and was overlooked until you couldn't ignore the quality anymore. United's attack is toothless. Not just in terms of goals, but in terms of personality. Players who intimidate defenders not just with their skill, but their presence. Players like Cunha will bring an edge like that. That willingness to make himself the villain if it means getting the win. And it's not just about the dark arts, it's just how you represent yourself on the pitch. The great United teams were never for the Saints. Far from it. We're quite literally the Red Devils. They were full of players with an edge who understood the responsibility that came with the shirt. And that's what I see in the potential signing of Cunha. Not just a good attacker, a goal scorer, but a player with the personality to use the pressure of expectation at United as fuel rather than a burden. He's far from a safe signing, but he could be a statement signing. And maybe that's what United need right now. A return to the days when opponents knew they were in for a fight. When they knew they weren't just facing players, but bastards who would do what they needed to get the 3 points and collectively as a team. So yeah, if United signed Cunha, he'd cross the line sometimes. He'd probably end up making headlines for the wrong reasons occasionally. But United would have something they desperately needed. That genuine personality, that genuine edge. And players whose quality inspires others. Players who play close to that edge and drag others up with them as a consequence. Fuck it, man. Give me a team full of players like Cunha, and I guarantee you won't see United be rolled over like we have done so many times in the last 10 years. It doesn't guarantee success. Nothing does in football. But we're not at a stage where we can guarantee anything. It's about shoring up the basics again. It's about fighting again. Cunha would be far from the full solution to all of United's problems. That's a long list. But he could prove the first step towards reclaiming it, part of the identity that we've lost. We don't need another nice guy with perfect PR. We need more bastards on the pitch. The kind who make opposition players check their shoulders. The kind who leave their foot in just enough to make defenders think twice. The kind who'll do whatever it takes to win and won't apologise for it later. The Premier League has become too comfortable playing against United. Too confident stepping onto the pitch at Old Trafford. And if United sign Cunha, they find the sort of player that says, I'd rather be hated and victorious than loved and defeated. Yeah, Cunha's got a hot streak in him, but I'd welcome it with open arms. Because as I said, that exact personality is what we need to get rid of the soft underbelly of this whole Manchester United team that we've had for far too long.